Okay, so here's the next Maamer, the Hemshech. Baruch, Sheasa, Nissim. K'meduber. So this Maamer, Baruch, Sheasa, Nissim, is miyusid, it's Tavshin Tezvav, miyusid on Baruch, Sheasa, Nissim of the Rebbe Nishma Seiden. Right, and that's what the Mahalach of the Maamer, the Rebbe is mevayer a few diyukim in the Maamer of the Rebbe Nishma Seiden. And that Maamer is Yutas Kislev Samach Dalid. So I believe I mentioned last time that it's very interesting that this Maamer, the Rebbe's Maamer was, number one, was said in Tavshin Tezvav. Even when the Rebbe was Magiyah, Tavshin Nun Aleph, it was printed. We didn't have yet Yutas Kislev Samach Dalid printed. That Maamer wasn't there yet. It was only printed a little while later. Shvat Nun Aleph. Only then the Maamer was printed. Then the Rebbe was mechalik. Yud Shvat Tavshin Nun Aleph, the Rebbe gave out the Maamer Baruch Sheasa Nissim. When the Maamer was printed, it said Yudas Kislev Tavshin Samach Daled, the Ara 2, and then it was Mamshich HaMaamer Loi Nidpas Leisat or something like that. The Maamer wasn't printed yet. This Maamer, Yudas Kislev Samach Daled, we know the famous Maisa, the Rebbe Chazer Kama Pamim. You have it in Pinchas Nun Aleph, where the Rebbe says the story in Teira Shalom they were singing the niggin before the Maamer, and the Chaver by the Fabring, they were singing it quickly because they wanted to get to the Maamer. And then the Rebbe was saying, stop them, and basically said that a prima yeder zach was tot is dorten in ganzen, right? So even though l'chayre the niggin is achana for the Maamer, but in kedusha even achana is a emes azach, like mitzvah seilacha. The whole teichen of mitzvah seilacha is for zrika, but once it became a mitzvah, it has a kvias. Same thing here. Even though the niggin before a Maamer is achana for the Maamer, but the niggin itself has a inyan b'fnei atzmai and has its own kiyum and toikif, and therefore a primi. If now you're singing the niggin, So it's interesting. This part of this Maamer. The Maamer was before was Baruch Sheasa Nissim. The niggin was before this Maamer. Kolpan. Okay, so this Maamer is a hemshich to the previous Maamer, and it's very interesting style of hemshich. Where in the Maamer you have in a few places full k'toyim, sometimes almost complete seifim or half seifim, a full keta, where it's mamish mila b'mila, like full seifim or full k'toyim from the previous Maamer is copied into this Maamer. You'll see it throughout the Maamer in a few places. L'mashal, you have it over here in the Kovetz on page 12, the beginning of Sif Gimel. The second line, Yuvim behek mashin ispire lael, and it brings a bunch of the next few lines is mamish from the previous Maamer. Then later on, beikir, you see this in Sivav on page 14 and 15. It goes into the 15, the first ket on 15. Yuvim behek amuv lael. This is in Sivav, pasuk Elia, and over there the next two k'toim is almost word for word from pasuk Elia. Well, there's in the next sif in Sif Zayin, the second keta in Ispar Lael, etc., which is interesting because it's mamish the previous Maamer, yet it's maitik kama k'toim, and which also shows mamish the hemshech ha'inyan, whereas we're mamish taking those in Yom Asmat Geret and we're reiterating it in order to bring out a new nikud. So on the one hand, in mamish, like I said, it's maitik previous k'toim, which seems to be mamish a hemshech the same inyan. Mitzad sheni, it completely flips the script, right? If Pasuk Elia is one side of the coin, Baruch Sheasa Nissim is the flip side. What's the pshat? Vos viler zogin in Pasuk Elia. The teichen of Pasuk Elia is, if we could use the words right, to be meroimim das tachtin, to be meroimim manhagas ateva. The Pasha says das tachtin and is das elyon. So elyon is higher than tachtin. And they're the shayrish for Anhaga Nissis and Anhaga Tivis. Anhaga Tivis means the Eibush that relates to this world, kiviyachal on the world's terms, that we are Teifes Makim, and Anhaga Nissis, we're not Teifes Makim, it's V'ervil. Comes the Maamer and teaches us, right, with the whole Arichis and through different sugis of Nes V'Teva and Biyurim in Teva and Chayis V'Eshavos v'chulu. We come to a maskana, that be'etzem, what's the maskana? What's the maskana of the first Maamer? The be'etzem das tachten is eichet be'etzem das elyon. Right? Because what's the nafkamina das elyon das tachten? Das tachten is lefi the ha'olam, that the olam exists. The olam is teifes makim. Das Elyon is was the Eibishter will. Comes the Maamer and says Das Tachton is also be'etzem the same level, not just the same level. It's the same toichen as Das Elyon. It's Gilei Avayr Insaif. Gilei Ritzoni Yisbar. Da Viler Niskalaver Nazaifin that he relates to the world on the world's terms. Fine. Comes Baruch Sheasa Nissim and says, right, where's the Nekudah? You can say the Nekudah of the Maamer. The Nekudah of the Maamer is in Sif Vav. Right? And kind of about to say the basic build-up of the Maamer. There's the Shilas right in the beginning, Sif Aleph. Then Sif Beis, Gimel, Dalid, Hey, and the first Keta of Vav. Vav has 4 Ktoim in it. So from the beginning, that's from the beginning of the Maamer, through the first Keta of Sif Vav, that's the first Chelik of the Maamer, which itself is broken up into 3 Chalach. We'll try to get to that soon. And the Chelik of the Maamer is the Sugi of Chacham and Bina. Right, that's a bit superficial way of being Magdir, but that's what the Sugi is. The Sugi of Chacham and Bina, which is L'chayre, where we Kimat didn't discuss that at all in the previous Maamer. You look in the early Mamish, the first Maamer, and the second Maamer, the Rebbe Mamish discusses it, that means the Bilti Mugim Mamor from Tishrei. The Rebbe discusses it Mamish Bekitzer, but here that's a big Yesoy, the Sugya of Chachma and Bina, and there's going to be Kama Dargis of Chachma and Kama Dargis in Bina, and by the time you think you figured it out, it's going to get Noch Tifer or Noch Tifer, and Noch Mer Dakastik, but these are the different Dargis of Chachma and Bina, and that's all coming to lead up to the point that he brings down in the beginning of Sivav, which is that even the highest level of Chachma needs an aliyah and has to go to something beyond itself. And this leads into the Nikud of the Maamer, which is the second keta, third keta, and fourth keta of the Maamer, of Sivav, and the Ikir, the fourth keta, because the second and third are Betzim Chazare, of Pasach Eliyahu, and bringing us to the point of the Nisya Shloimer, the Shloimer at the bottom of page 15, that's the Nikud of the Maamer, which is that just like Das Tachtin, through its yichud with Das Elyon, is seen from a new perspective. We see mitzad pnimiyus al derech zeh hu b'das Elyon. Das Elyon also has 2 ifanim. There's the literal Das Elyon, the way what's not literal Das Elyon, the way we always understood Das Elyon, the way we learned Das Elyon. That's in almost every Maamer of Chassidus. And then there's Das Elyon of Baruch Sheasa Nissim. That Das Elyon not mitzad that azoy be'etzim is the Inyan, nor vaden mitzad azoy is ritzoni is Baruch. The Eibishter wants Das Elyon to be in a state of Das Elyon. Now, all the pratim and what that actually means, it's more important to learn it as we're learning the Maamer. I just want to bring out the hafla shebedavar, the chiddush of this Maamer over the previous Maamer. Right? Because when you look at it, you think, okay, which one's the bigger chiddush? Is the bigger chiddush the hafla, the pnimius of Das Tachtin, or the pnimius of Das Elyon? Right? And between these two Maamorim, the Rebbe brings us a new perspective: Sayan Das Tachtin, Sayan Das Elyon. Where's the chiddush greater? Fine. So I already mentioned a few times that the bigger chiddush is in this Maamer. So it's shtickle. So even as metrachted, the first Maamer is pasim sezogin. But say that you could say it's the first Maamer. But the emes is l'chayre. It depends how you look at it. There's a flaw in each tzad. What's the flaw? What are we trying to do? Right? The pashtos when you see Das Tachtin and Das Elyon, where's Das Tachtin? Where's Das Elyon? Right, so that in Chassidus has many levels, and the first Maamer in Tavshin Tesvav, he brings, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 dargis, right? You could say Das Tachtin is in Biyad, Das Elyon is Atzilus, in Atzilus Gufa, 2 dargis, Atzilus and Lamayla Me'atzilus, Chatzoynius and Pnimius Akav, Achar Atzimtzum, Koydem Atzimtzum, right? There's many different stages where you could put the cutoff line of where's Das Tachtin and where's Das Elyon. But ultimately, Das Tachtin will be already in a space where there's an asinas makim loyalamis, right? It's not the Eibishter. It's not a likus b'tarasa. It's not the what's Das Tachtin? Vida Tachtin cooked. It's a lower perspective, not just lower. Elyon is the Eibishter alein, and Das Tachtin is neither. So you have Das Tachtin, and like you said, there's different fans of Das. You have Das Tachtin and what it means that the Tachtin mamish, the human being perceives things, the way we see things. But then even in Alikus, we say Kel Deis Havaya, in a Eibishter Alein, in Alikus Gufa, there's Das Elyon, Das Tachtin, but Das Tachtin will always be at a stage where the Eibishter already is connected to this world. Al Kadei Kata, you could call this world Yesh, and Elikus Ayin, where Elikus Kiviyachol serves the world. It's the Gilui Eliki that's for the Oilamus. We come and say in Basach Elio that this Gilui Elikus, this level in Getlichkeit, that Lichera is not Shrang Enid Movadei, right? It's not the simple truth of Enid Movadei of the Eibishter. Rather, there's already nuance here. There's already a Velt, and we relate to the Velt, and the child is how much the Velt is Batal Telikus. And we come and say, but that as well, it's the same Enid Movadei, it's the same Oirein Tzoif as Das Elyon. That's a Meir Dik Chiddush, right? Because you're taking something that's a disconnected from Pshittus of Elikos, and you're saying that's Eichda Chelik from the Pshittus. Here we come in our Maamer, and here you can come and say, okay, it sounds a bit nuanced. Because the Chatchila, what's Das Elyon? The Chatchila Das Elyon we're speaking about over here is Mitzad Oirein Tzoif. V'yidei Eibishter Alein Cooked Afeinu. So now I'm coming and saying that this itself, the Das Elyon, L'mayla Yesh, L'mata Ayin, and it's completely Mevatel the Oilamis, right? Oirein Tzoif, L'mayla Adin Kate, L'mata Adin Tachlis. This guf is Mitzad Ritzoyin Yisrael, because the Eibishter wants it. Okay, so what's the difference of how we viewed Das Elyon earlier, a moment ago, and how I see Das Elyon now, Mitzad Ritzoyin Yisbarach? If it's not Mitzad Ritzoyin Yisbarach, then what is it? Right? Das Elyon doesn't exist on its own. What's Das Elyon? Das Elyon is Oirein Tzoif. Das Elyon is wie the Eibishter cooked of Zach. So you're saying that this itself, the Eibishter sees it that way is because he chose to see it that way. No, so my nafkemina. So if you look at it, must be like Mitzad Dargis and Mitzad, okay, you look at it geographically, I take it from this Darg and I'm Mailet, it sounds like, okay, Krichin Dargis and Koidem Atzimtzum, right? But Mitzad Nikudas Achidish B'Dar, there is a Merdik Achidish here. Be'etzim what we're saying is like this. B'Pashas, we learn Chassidus and we learn about Koidem Atzimtzum and Achar Atzimtzum, so how do we understand it? Koidem Shnivra Oilam Hoya Hu Shmoi Bulvad. Right? There's the status quo. What's the status quo? The status quo is Vidin is B'Pashas. The Pashtos Inyan is Hoya and say Malo Makam Acholo. All there is Gilal Likus. All there is Emes Avaya Lo'ilam. Came the Tzimtzum, and the Tzimtzum played around with things and now created a new reality. So you have Das Elyon, you have Das Tachtin. You have a higher perspective where Elikus B'Pshittus M'Oilmis B'Yischatshus, and Das Tachtin, Oilmis B'Pshittus and Elikus B'Yischatshus. Why is Elikus B'Pshittus and Oilmis B'Yischatshus in Das Elyon? Because that's the reality. It's not Chas V'Shalom, a created reality. That's the truth. The truth is the Eibishter Emes. What we're saying in this Maamer is, as hard as it is to grasp, at least in Muskorishin, is that this that lechatchila, elikus b'pshitus v'oilmis b'yischatshus, is b'vchirasei. It's as mechudish as oilmis b'pshitus and elikus b'yischatshus. Das Elyon and Das Tachtin are both kechoymer b'yad hayoytzer. As revealed Das Elyon, there's Das Elyon, Das Tachtin, Das Tachtin. And you're basically saying that the emes is not elikus. Uvemele, all of ilmis are bottle. It's not inherent. It's not necessarily that way. It's konzaynanish. It's as a choice of the Eibishter to make the tzimtzum is that there should be a gilui erein tzoif. So that's the vart of this Maamer. Now, the Maamer uses a certain oisius and a very interesting mahalach to get to that point. But that's the goydel achidush kan. The nafkeminis are tremendous. Right? When you think this over, it basically tells you that there are no givens. There's no inyan. There's a zayidas. Because we look at certain things that this has to be, and then there's a chiddush. There's mechuyvim mitzias. The pashtus das elyon is mechuyvim mitzias. Das tachtin is a created reality. Something that the Eibishter decided to be mitzamtzim himself and allow this reality to exist, at least b'chitzoynis. But here we're saying all of it. Das Tachtin, Das Elyon, it's all b'vchirasei, b'ritzoynis. Now, one second. This is the end of Sif Vav. Then comes Sif Zayin and on. And from Sif Zayin basically till the end, it speaks about the chibur of Das Elyon, Das Tachtin, which is basically, it's a hemshich to the first half of Baruch. So Nissim, but also Pasach Elio, of how actually this chibur takes place, right? Because Sai Pasach Elio and Sai Baruch Sheasa Nissim wants to get to a point where we get to the Pnimius of Das Tachlin and the Pnimius of Das Elyon. How? How are we megala the Pnimius of Das Tachlin? How are we megala the Pnimius of Das Elyon? Through being mechaber them. When Das Tachlin connects to Das Elyon, we megala the Pnimius of Das Tachlin. And when Das Elyon connects to Das Tachlin, which is basically saying the same thing, then the Pnimius of Das Elyon is in Skala. So basically, by being mechaber the two of them, we're megala the Nekuda. The Nekudatzis were the betzim they're one, which is we spoke about this when we discussed Sif Yud Aleph of Pasach Elio. Now, how exactly does that chibur happen, and why is that chibur so necessary? And that whole process is explained basically in the second half of the Maamer, and that's where we have the different levels of Nissim and how Nissim relate to Teva and Nissim Lamaylam et Teva, Mislabish and Teva, which is basically the different stages of this chibur of Nes v'Teva, and that's the second half of the Maamer. Now, okay, now when we get to the first half of the Maamer, let's try to give it just a general outlook of what's going on over here. So, the shaila of the Maamer, or one of the shailas of the Maamer, which is which leads the Rebbe to this big chiddush, right? Very similar to Pasach Elio. When the one that Rebbe says Inyan Zer Mechudesh Dike Inyan, a new Havon in Das Tachlin, a new Havon in Das Elyon, but it's all miyusin was steht in Chassidus frier. Meaning, so in the previous Maamer, the Rebbe was able to come to this point based off a chibur of a few sugyas, right? Pirushim and Teva, Choymer and Surah. What am I missing? Rotzin and Dibur, right? Especially the Havon of the Inyan of Rotzin. Hishabos and Chayos, yeah?
What's the difference between Rotzen and the Rotzen is before, and the Dibur is doing?
We'll discuss it later, okay? And through that, the Rebbe led the Rebbe to this point where that even Das Tachlin is Inyan of Rotzen. It's Mitzad Ritzoyni is Baruch. Here, as I said, we're trying to come to a more edel and nekuda that even Das Elyon is Mitzad Ritzoyni is Baruch. So what leads the Rebbe to this point is, this time it's basically one sug. It's the sug of Chachma and Bina, with many different stages, many factors to it. The first half of the Maamer, it's Edel and Yonim. There's a Ribui Dargas going on here that, mamish, if you blink, you missed it. It's like you think you're talking about one Darg, and all of a sudden a line later, you're already two Dargas, Tifer or Viter, and then the Rebbe goes back. But it is important to try to keep them halif, don't fly through it. Obviously, you want to do the Maamer, maybe one time learn the Maamer, you go through the Maamer just to get the Hasbara, the Mahalach. You don't have to do the entire Maamer. I would say do from the beginning of the Maamer through Sivav. Plus, you see the point that Rebbe is trying to bring out. But then it's worth going back and Pashat sitting, Pashat sit and try to break down what's going on or what these different dargas are. I'll try to give a general outline of what the dargas here are, the first few sifim, to understand what the Rebbe is trying to do. So, what happens here is like this. Baruch, Sheasa, Nissim, Lavi, B'yam, Mehim, Mizman, Hazeh. The Maamer of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden says that what's Sheasa Nissim Laviseinu, Nissim Laviseinu. So in Chassidus, Nissim Laviseinu means like this, right? But in Pshat, Nissim Laviseinu, miracles happen to our forefathers, to our fathers, right? This is what we celebrate in every Yom Tov. It's Chanukah. Sheasa Nissim Laviseinu. What's up in Chassidus? Aviseinu is Chachma and Bina, right? We know from the beginning of Tanya that the midis are the toldes, are the children, and Chachma and Bina Chachma is the father, Bina is the mother. So Aviseinu, our parents, is Chachma and Bina. Sheasa Nissim Laviseinu, Nissim is Arim Nisi Alarm. Nes is always the name of Ufgeheben. Right, so at the beginning of the year, Shnas Nissim, they've gekocht, it's Ufgeheben a year, Shabbos dik a year. Ufgeheben. So also Nissim Laviseinu, the Ibish there is Magbia Chachma and Bina. A harama. There's a harama in Chachma and Bina. This is what we're trying to figure out in the next few sifim. What exactly is this harama in Chachma and Bina? To understand what it is, we first have to understand why it's hard to understand. And by doing that, we're going to go through multiple levels in Bina, multiple levels in Chachma, and then be medayik, lefi a whole mahalach, that we have to say Sheasa Nissim Laviseinu means that Bina is nis'ala, Chachma is nis'ala. Even the highest levels of Chachma are nis'ala. And then the question is, how is the highest chachma level, the highest level of chachma nis'ala, and why does it have to be nis'ala? And this will lead us to the Das Elyon discussion. All right, we get to the nekuda here. What's the nekuda? The nekuda is chachma and bina are connected Das Elyon Das Tachti. There's many levels in Das Elyon Das Tachti. And then we're medayik that within chachma, certain levels are not completely Das Elyon. You could also call them Das Tachtin because they're related to Bina. Only the most abstract levels of Chachmeh, they are the pure Das Elyon. Zok, that even the highest levels of Chachmeh, Sheasa, Nissim, Laviseinu, the Eibishter is Magbiya, Bina, and Chachmeh. So the Eibishter is Magbiya, Bina. What's Bina? Das Tachtin. And the lower levels of Chachmeh as well, Das Tachtin. What's the Hagbah? How are we Meroimim Das Tachtin? By connecting it to Das Elyon and being Megalin at the Pnimius, how it's Mitzad, Oyer Itzaif. But then we say, that not only Bina has a Hagbah, there's also a Hagbah that happens to Chachma, and the deepest and most abstract levels of Chachma. Which means that even Das Elyon, in its most pure form of Das Elyon, that will also have a Hagbah. How are my Magbiya Das Elyon? A Magbiya it to us that the pnimius of Das Elyon, that it's not Das Elyon is not mitzad, that this is just the way it's inherently, but rather Das Elyon vi Erin Seif, vi the Eibush, vi Ratzon Elyon, the way the Eibishter sees Das Elyon, what the Eibishter wants out of Das Elyon. The Rebbe doesn't say it's clear in the Maamer, but the part of the Vart is there's Bina, there's Chachma. What's the level beyond Chachma? Ratzon, right? And because the whole Vart here is that Das Elyon and Das Tachtin should be mitzad ritzoyni yisbarech. So we're saying that Sai Bina and Sai Chachma are nis'ale to Ratzon. That's the Nikud, right? We want to reach, that's the Nikud of the Hemshech. Everything should come to a place and be an expression of ritzoyni yisbarech. Sai Bina, Sai Chachma. Now, here there's going to be there's going to be a few levels of Chachma and Bina brought out in this Maamer. We'll try to discuss at least a few of them. First in the Nimshal, and then maybe get a bit to the Mashal. But first, he speaks in the beginning of the Maamer, Eret Vegin Yichud Zon, Yichud Chub, Yichud Zav and Nukva, Yichud Chachma v'Bina. So the B'chal, the need of Yichudim is in Kabbalah, and in Chassidus it's not the main Inyan. But just a shtickle background to understand what we're trying to say over here. So B'chlal, right, when we do Torah mitzvahs, what happens when we do mitzvahs? What does Yiddishkeit say? What's the pu'ula of mitzvahs? Right, so first you come and say, oh, I'm Evet Pash, what do you ask me such kind of questions? What happens when I do mitzvahs? I do what the Eibishter wants. Right? The simple Yid gets it straight to Atzmus, right? He could bypass all this shtalshlis and these dargas. It's very simple. What's the first one we do mitzvahs? We took the Ratzon Elyon. Fine, but the Eibishter didn't want we should just do things without any kavanah. Right? If that would have, if we would be commanded to l'choytev eitzim, we would do that as well. It's a famous shiloh. What's ilun stavino lachtev eitzim? Is really putting on straps that much different than Klap and Holtz? I'm saying, well, what's exactly what's ilun lachtev eitzim? As if the mitzvahs that we have are mamish very spiritual. The vart is that we put on tefillin and we put on mezuzahs, v'chulu. But the vart is that we understand that it's not just doing Ritzoni Yisbarech. There's a pull that happens. Tefillin, there's the Daled Moichin that are Nimshach, Mezuzah, right? And then and not only Binyanim Ruchnim, there's also the Gashmis, there's a Shmira that happens, there's a pull that happens in the world. So there's Inyanim that happen. So the vart Ilim Tzivin Lachdev Eitzim is if the Eibishter would have commanded us to be choytev eitzim, and chativas eitzim volt geblieben chativas eitzim, it wouldn't be a holy chativas eitzim. It would be the same chativas eitzim of right now going and being choytev eitzim. There wouldn't be any ruchnis to pull it. We would still do it, right? But lepoil the Eibishter, that's only ilin stavin lachdev eitzim. Lepoil the Eibishter does have a purpose. There is a kavan in our mitzvahs. Now, what's this kavan? So here depends who you ask. Right? You ask the isha halacha. Right? Then it's so first of all come and say it's Ritzoni Yisbarech. And then you have versteht sich, there was Maamer in the Hadronim, especially in Hadron Lamed Hey, the Nekuda that the Cheftz of the Welt, the Cheftz of Oilom should be Lefi Ritzoni Yisbarech, right? Chassidus obviously takes these ideas a lot deeper. There's an akudah of making dira b'tachtoinim, being mamshich elikus in this world, being megal elikus in this world, showing how this world is one with the Eibush there, being megal the truth. Kabbalah has its own lingo, its own sprach, and it's not just a language, it's a whole mahalach, yeah? In Kabbalah, it's all about yichudim. Every mitzvah we do is liyachid yichudim, everything going on down here is just, right? Like, so you're working on the computers, you see that you're using a keyboard, and you're typing things, and you see things on the screen. But that's not really what's happening, right? There's a whole coding going on behind it, right? And that's really what's happening. What you're seeing is you're just seeing the pool, the external matzav of this whole of what's really going on. So really, everything that's going on is really b'ilum esel yoinim. Right? According to Kabbalah b'pashtos doesn't really speak about dirab tachtoinim, not just because it's not a hot topic there, but because in Kabbalah, in many sfarim, we don't really see the kavanah of that. It's all about Eilam Hazeh. If our carrot, Eilam Hazeh is just a stepping stone for the Eilam Esel Yoinim. Everything we're doing is really being mamshich Eiris, Batzilis, and in other Eilamis. That's what we're doing. This world is just a place that that's where we play the part, but the pula we're doing is all Lamaila. It's not about doing it Lamata. It's not about being playing something Lamata. So we're miyachid yichudim. And there's all kinds of yichudim, there's ribu yichudim. And the kudah is that we have to be miyachid different spheres together, and that's mamshech kol minei hamshachas. So ba'oivin klali, from the main yichudim that there are, there's yichud zun, and there's yichud chub. It's a Yidal Kislev bald, Maamer and Lechadoidi. The milas of yichud avo, right there called yichud avo. Avo is chub. Chachma bina yichud avo is abba v'ima. Yichud zun. Now, how do we do these yichudim? How are we miyachid these different daragas? By different mitzvahs. This mitzvah is mechaber this sphere with that sphere. The other mitzvah is mechaber, right? Everything's mechaber something else. But now, the problem is when it comes to yichud chub, when you get to yichud chachma v'bina, it's complicated. What's complicated about it? How can we say that we're poyel a yichud between chachma and bina? We know that chachma and bina is trein rein the lemis parsha. Chachma and Bina are always together. There is no b'lashon Chassidus, ein Chachma b'lei Bina, ve'ein Bina b'lei Chachma. They'll always come together, as we'll discuss soon. So, Chachma and Bina always come together. So what does it mean that we're mechaber Chachma and Bina? Now, it's not just mitzad, the way Chachma and Bina work, the Chachma and Bina always have to come together. What happens when Chachma and Bina come together? Chachma and Bina come together, Chachma is the Av, Bina is the Aim, and they are Moiled Midas. Right? Now, if Chachma and Bina are not together, there's never midas. So that's the fact that there is Zun. Zun exists means that there's already Yichud Chub. Because that's right. And how do I know there's Zun? We know there's 10 spheres, right? But this that there's a world. What's the mucker of the Welt? The mucker of the Welt is Olam Chesed Yiban Alpayim Shana Kadma Teir Loilam. It's Alefcha Chachma, Alefcha Bina. I'm sure you still remember from your mitzvah Maamer, yeah. So Chachma and Bina are Kadma Loilam. Olam Chesed Yibane, the Midas, that's the mucker of the Welt. So the fact that there's a world, it comes from the Midas. In order for the Midas to exist, it's only through the Yichud of Chachma and Bina. So Chachma and Bina are always misyach, they're always together. So what is the avodah of Yichud Chub? So dem Zokmen, the Einachanami. There is a Yichud Chub that is always there. And then there's the Yichud that happens through our avodah. Right, which says in the Maamer, there's zivuk chitzoyni of chub, and there's zivuk pnimi. Zivuk chitzoyni is always there. The chitzoynius of chachma, what's zivuk chitzoyni? The chitzoynius of chachma is what is niskala, what relates to bina, connects with bina, and through that it gives birth to midas. The pnimius, then the zivuk pnimi, which beikr means that the pnimius of chachma always stays removed and abstract, and that doesn't go into the level of bina. In order to be miyachid the pnimius of chachma into bina, of them, therefore haben avodah. That only comes from avodah. So when we speak about avodah, that there's certain avodas, certain parts of avodah Hashem that they bring yichud chub. That's the avodah of yichud eilah, the avodah of Shema Yisrael. That's when we're miyachid chachma with bina. What we're then trying to do is be miyachid pnimius of chachma with bina. Where is pnimius chachma misyachid? How is it misyachid with bina? It's misyachid with pnimius bina. So chitzoynius chachma is misyachid with chitzoynius bina, Pnimius Chachma is Yisachid with Pnimius Bin. Now, why can Pnimius Chachma on its own be Misyachid with Bina, and why does it have to come to our Avodah? So for that we have to understand how does Chachma function and how does Bina function? Sai in the Mashal and Sai in the Nimshal. And just for a minute, very sadistic Indian, Chalal Chassidus, Gans Chassidus Chabad is full of Mishalim. And Beikar Mishalim of Nefesh Adam, right? Psychological Mishalim, from the way the Nefesh Adam functions. Now, it's important to chap both sides when we speak about the Mishalim of Chassidus. On the one hand, the Mishalim of Chassidus are not just to gloss over. It's Geshmak HaMashal and B'Seder Meged Vaiter. The point of bringing the Mishalim is in order to understand the Nimshal, which means, because the Nimshal is Eliki, is Ruchni, these are abstract ideas. In order for it to make sense to us, so we're given a mashal that Rebbeim tell us Mishalim, and these Mishalim are from things that are relatable to us and we understand, and they are part of our own lives. It's things that we could relate to in a very personal way. And once you relate it in that oifin, and things make sense to you in a very internalized way, then you come and say, okay, now I go back to the Nimshal and understand the Nimshal in a much more relatable way. No matter how many times you learn a mashal, ultimately the Nimshal, we're talking about Yonim Elikim, Antu Chakim v'lo b'chachma yediyah, Anta Mevin v'lo b'vina yediyah. So right, there's only Yediyas Mitzias, Yediyas Amahos in Elikus is not really Shaykh. But it comes in a way that we could on some level relate it, and these are things that make sense to us. So tell us two things. Number one, when we learn the mashal have to make sense. At the same time, so let's say we learn the mashal of Chacham and Bina on Seretzich, all together. We'll have to see by the time we finish the first 5 sifim. If there's 5 dargas in Chacham or 6 dargas in Chacham, there's 3 dargas in Chacham, a few dargas in Bina. Okay, very nice. Get right. The whatever number of dargas we're speaking about here are dargas that exist, and they don't exist in Yehupitz. They don't exist by some major goyin that may be or maybe not be alive. We have to go find out if he's still around. These are dargas that exist in every single human being. These dargas exist in every nefesh adam. And the nikud is to find a darga. Sometimes you can find a mamish in yourself. Sometimes you can find it in somebody else. But the nikud is to have it relatable. But then the challenge is not to get stuck there. It's easy to get people to enjoy the Mishalom of Chassidus, get stuck in the Mishalom. Yeah, Chassidus is not a psychology book. That's not what it is. Chassidus is to understand Elikus. In order to understand it and it should be relatable to us, we have to come through the Mashal. Fine. So let's try to discuss a few of the dargis here. We'll see as many as we could get through over here. So first, the Eret in Chachma. So in Sif Gimel. He talks about the following levels. Some of these are mamish and a half a line, right? Mamish, like I said, you blink, you missed it, you might not even pick it up. But if you don't have the different things that are going on over here, it's very easy to get lost and just wonder, like, why is he chazing over himself, and what are these bunch of sugrayim here that seem to be a bit confusing? So B'ayif and Klal we have like this. We'll do it Sif Gimel. Later stage we'll go to the later Sifim because there we go to much more dakastik inyan. So in Chochmah we have here 3 dargis. In Bina, we have 2 dargas. In Bina, there's Bina Bichlal, and there's Pnimius Bina, Ktonius Bina, and Pnimius Bina. In Chachma, so we have Shtayim Shem Shalish. The first darga, the highest darga is Re'iyah de Chachma. The next darga that splits into 2 is the Haskalah of Chachma. So there's Re'iyah de Chachma and Haskalah de Chachma. Haskalah de Chachma splits into 2. One level is, the higher level is Hanocha. The lower level is Seichel. It's a bit interesting language. The Seichel of the Haskalah. Right? It sounds like you're saying the same word twice. So there's Re'iyah, Hanocha, Seichel. Hanocha and Seichel are the Pnimius and Chitzonius of Haskalah of Chachma. So these are 3 levels. What are these 3 dargas? So at the core, right? So very often we speak about chachma, we speak about the lashon we use is barak hamarik, right? A spark. There's a spark of inspiration. But this spark of inspiration is the chitzonius of chachma. That's not the real chachma. The real chachma is way asach tifer vida. What's the nekuda of chachma? The nekuda of chachma is re'iyah. That's at least the way he calls it, leis ato, that's the etzem of chachma. The core of chachma is re'iyah. When the sound of re'iyah, so what is he saying? What he's trying to bring out in these sifim is, we're talking about yesh and ayin, das elyin, das tachtein, right? I should go refresh. So there's yesh. What's das elyin, das tachtein? L'mayla yesh or l'mata ayin, or l'mata yesh and l'mayla ayin. So we have two yeshes. How many ayins?
One.
Or two, and you're right both times, right? You see the samach vav that there's yesh ayin yesh, but ba'oimik there's yesh ayin yesh. In this Maamer, imamish, so here's where he goes into the different dargahs of yesh and ayin. It's important to chab that in the first sifim we're going according to the more basic havana of three stages: yesh ayin yesh. Like we said, that the Chassidus has this hanacha that between every two yeshes there has to be an ayin be'emtza. Ein yesh v'yesh bli ayin be'emtza. So yesh ayin yesh. So the way it's in Sif Gimel is yesh ayin yesh. In Sif Dalid, in the Chatzoi Ribua, in the brackets of Sif Dalid and Sif Hey, here we already step it up and we already start speaking about yesh ayin yesh. That's when we get into the two ayins. But we're speaking about an ayin. So yesh ayin yesh. So he says, who's the ayin, who's the yesh? So chachma is ayin and bina is yesh. Right? This is what's happening in Sif Gimel. Chachma is ayin, bina is yesh. Bina is mitzias. Chachma is ayin. Why is chachma ayin? Because chachma is it's fleeting, right? It's not. It can't be grounded. It's not. We don't fully perceive. We don't fully understand it. Right, that's a general nekuda. And then he's going to try to explain how we see this in actual levels of chachma. So the first level of chachma, right? And so now we'll try to, when we're saying this point, we're saying higher levels of chachma and lower levels of chachma. What means something higher or lower? The more ayin it is, the higher it is. The less ayin, the more, it's still ayin, but it's not in ganzen ayin, so it has some relationship with yesh. That's a lower level of chachma. So the highest level is re'iyah. What's re'iyah? Re'iyah, we know, right? A person sees something. Ein eid nasadayin, you see something, the pshittis that you have, the conviction, as a zoyis der emes, right? And you could have kol ha-mumchim sheba'olam, and the greatest analysts and professors and mumchim can come to you and eidim and prove to you it's impossible you saw what you saw. You saw this guy here. Look at his tickets. He wasn't here in 6 months. He has a black stamp. He can't be in this country. I mean, a million, right? And we'll show you cameras. There's nobody here. It's irrelevant. I saw him. Once you see something, it's clear. Now, why is it so clear? It's clear because the pashtus, when you see someone, right, people that believe in their svaris, right, in their ideas very strongly, they're what we call strong-minded people. So Pashtus, a strong-minded person, between a strong-minded person and a more weak-minded, or not as strong-minded, who usually has more yeshes? You think so? Yeah, right? A strong-minded person. A strong-minded person, right? Yazev Rasha Darkei v'ish oin v'ish oven v'ish oin machshavoisav. The Bir Chassidus, right? That a strong-minded person has to get off his high horse, right? In other words, see other perspectives. So l'ch'era, when we speak about re'iyah, when we speak about someone that like has this, someone says, I know this to be true, the muskulishin, it sounds like an nekuda of yeshes, versus someone that's open to different options. But that's when someone's strong-minded, sort of, I have an idea, I have a certain svara, and I buy into my own ideas, and that's it, right? And I can't be bugged. You can't argue with me. It is what it is. Re'iyah doesn't work that way. Re'iyah is not that I come up with some svara, and it's right, and it's irrefutable. The vart of re'iyah is, why is re'iyah so clear? Because I'm not part of the story. I'm part of the story in the fact that my eyes, first let's talk in re'iyah gashmis, my eyes were pushed open and saw something. But it's nothing about me that processed this information. It's the zach. That image, that person that I saw was there. Right? I saw this image. I saw this building. I saw something. It appeared. It's there. So hat sich bewiesen zu mir. So therefore, if I care, it's not. There's no yeshus here. It's tachlis a bittul. It's not about me. It's about the zach. It's about the truth. Now, be'emes.
That's why you can't argue about the Rebbe.
Oh, one second. Huh?
That's why you can't argue about the Rebbe.
Why?
It's true.
Right. Yeah. That's all. Right. So now the emes is that bichlal. We're speaking here more with Pirati is how chachma and bina is ayin and yesh. But really, in other places, meret, that moichin and midis are ayin v'yesh. Right? Bichlal is yoser, moichin is ayin, midis is yesh. Why is moichin ayin bina is yesh? Well, we spoke a bit about moichin midis last Maamer. What's midis? Subjective experience, what I feel. No, when a person feels, what do I feel? This is how I feel. I feel good about it. I like it. I don't like it. Why? It's not about why. This is the reality. It's whatever I feel. It's a subjective experience. Moichin is objective. Is an objective reality. Moichin is 2 + 2 = 4, not because I like it or I don't like it. Right. So I'm mispatel to a certain kloli aseichel, certain truths. So b'chlolos, all of moichin is ayin, is bittul. But when I break it down, bina is yesh, moichin is chachma is ayin, and in chachma itself, the less I will exist here, the less I get in the way, it's more ayin. The more some part of me exists, as we'll see how in each level we go down in chachma, and then into bina, there's more epis vas zich. B'yachas to midis, it's no zich at all. But b'yachas to moichin, there's some zich, so there will be some level of yesh. So in re'iyah, just like when a person sees something, it's all about the thing that was seen. The same thing in re'iyah of chachma, which is the re'iyah sichlis. I know this to be true. Why do I know this to be true? Because I saw it. Right? I saw this truth. Famous dogma Chassidus brings of Shasik Rav. Rav said a certain halacha, they asked him a shaila, he didn't have an answer, and that's my favorite shastira, he didn't have an answer. And still halacha kamoyse. The emes is that the Gemara brings an answer to the question. But Rav didn't have an answer to the question. Mitzad Rav, Shasik Rav. There's no answer. There's no answer. Why? Because there's no question. Because by him, it's not because when you see something, when you see a certain truth, azay is the remes. Then there's lower levels of hanacha and baraka mavrik. All right, I think we'll take a break. Okay.